Welcome to the fourth video in a series on sentence combining. This time we're going to talk about sentence combining with participial phrases. Never fear, it's not as hard as it sounds. So last time in the third video we talked about appositives. We defined them, you learned to identify them, and you used appositives to add precise details to your sentences. Later on in class, we also talked about how an easy way to identify an appositive is to ask yourself, can I put a or an at the front of it? If you can, then you have an appositive. If you can't, it's not an appositive. If you're still struggling with appositives, please make sure that you ask me questions, that you go back and review the video about appositives, and we can help get you straightened out. So this time, you are going to understand how participial phrases can be used to add precise details to your sentences. And of course, you're going to first define and identify participial phrases, and then you'll use those participial phrases to combine kernel sentences into a lively sentence with precise details. You'll notice that this learning target and these success criteria are similar to the ones about appositives. It's all about using these sentence elements to create lively sentences with precise details. That's what we're going for here. So first of all, we have to understand what a participle is. A participle is quite simply a verb with an ing ending or a verb in the past tense. So here are some examples: running, studying, filled, braided. You could come up with a million more examples yourself. But again, it's got to have an ing ending or it's got to be past tense. So then what is a participial phrase? Well, it's just simply a phrase with a participle in it. So you'll see our example participles right there, and their attached phrases. Running through the house, studying for the test, filled with regret, braided tightly against her head. Now you'll notice that participial phrases cannot be sentences by themselves. They've got to be parts of sentences because they describe nouns. So here's some examples from literature. Looking over their own troops, they saw mixed masses slowly getting into regular form. You'll notice that this participial phrase has a participle in it, looking, and you'll notice that I have the word that it modifies in green. So who's looking over their own troops? They are. Okay, second example. Amazed at the simplicity of it all, I understood everything as never before. Participle, amazed. Who's amazed? I am. And then the third one, you'll notice the participial phrase isn't, they don't just have to be at the beginnings of sentences. Professor Kazan, wearing a spotlessly white tropical suit and a wide-brimmed hat, was the first ashore. So who was wearing the suit and the hat? Professor Kazan was. Okay, so go ahead and take a stab at underlining the participial phrases in these sentences from literature. Pause the video and write those sentences down and see if you can identify the participial phrases, including the participles in them. You should have the parts in red underlined. So you'll notice that in the first one, minute fungi isn't right next to the participial phrase. The subject of the participial phrase doesn't always have to be right next to it, as with appositives. But hanging in a fine tangled webwork from the eaves is the participial phrase. And what was hanging? Minute fungi are. And the second one, who's standing there in the middle of the street? Marty is. Standing there in the middle of the street is the participial phrase. So make sure you have the parts in red underlined. All right, so let's have a look at how we can use participial phrases to combine sentences. So on the left-hand side, I have 4 kernel sentences. Don clicked through the slideshow. Don reflected on his past. Don pondered his successes. Don pondered his failures. And I've got a couple different combinations. Go ahead and read those over. Pause the video if you have to. You'll notice that I've put the participial phrases in red. Reflecting on his past, Don clicked through the slideshow and pondered his successes and failures. Another way I could have combined that is Don clicked through the slideshow, reflecting on his past and pondering his successes and failures. Whoa, wait a second. Hold on. Do you see what I see? The participial phrase in the first example is combined with another participle in the second example. Participial phrases can have more than one participle in them. Oh my gosh, mind blown. So you can see there's a lot of different ways that you can creatively use participial phrases to combine your sentences. You're not limited to having one participial phrase or for the phrase to have only one participle in it. You're only limited by your creativity. So I want you to go ahead and try 2 different combinations of these kernel sentences. So go ahead and pause the video, create 2 of your own combinations of these kernel sentences about Sally. Okay, so at this point, you should understand how participial phrases can be used to add precise details to your sentences. You should be able to define and identify participial phrases, and you should have used participial phrases to combine some kernel sentences. Of course, make sure that any questions you have are written down so that we can discuss them together. And just to kind of give you a heads up as to what we'll be talking about together, we're going to be talking about how to identify the dreaded dangling participle. This was something my English teacher nailed me on all the time when I was a kid, and I want to help you guys avoid it. So that's what we'll be talking about together. Looking forward to it.